If you like this video, make sure to subscribe to our channel and hit the notification bell icon to get the latest updates.
Okay, so welcome back, Ashwath and Karuna. How are you guys doing today? How was the day? I know
Good, Abhi.
it's almost the ending of your day today, and yeah, it's a journey which you are onboarding from today, learning this Workday platform. So yeah, just wanted to get some insight around you because I remember we had an initial tech call where we discussed few things, and then we are meeting now to get started on this journey.
Right.
Okay, cool. So let me share my screen and we'll just do some quick checks around it, like, how we would proceed, how things would work, the timings and all of that. So let me know if you guys, once you guys are able to see my screen.
Yep.
Okay,
Yes.
so you can see the screen, right?
Yes.
Cool. So obviously you must have got the access to this LMS. Now LMS is again nothing but the learning management portal provided by the Zarentech, where you have all the options, like various tabs, which is kind of a your go-to tool for any kind of information you're looking for related to your ongoing training. So you have the topics in different tabs, like, as we would be starting with the Workday reporting part. So you have all the material listed down over here in the form of PPTs and some kind of high level documents which you can go through. Then obviously, as we move ahead, you have the Workday integration, the Workday Studio, basics and advanced. So that is on these different tabs, segregated properly for your for your reference purpose. Then for all the video recordings, it will be listed, the sessions which we would be conducting. You will have all the recordings and all of it, the meeting links listed over in a different tabs. So that is something which you can go and in fact use this LMS to join your next sessions. Whenever you have, there's a small bit of information which needs to be updated over here, right? Like, we plan to use 1.5 hour of session on these 4 days. So basically it's Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, sorry, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday and Thursday according to CST time zone, and it will be 1.5 hours. So they just need to update it, which will be done. Then one important part is the, the discussion board. I think there must be some heads up around it, which you would have got, that any queries or any communication which you would want to post it between you as a trainee and myself as a trainer, we can leverage this discussion board. You just have to create a new post, and what it does is, it will send a notification, just in case if you want to send any information. And this is primarily we would use for two important purpose. One, if you have any queries or questions which you want, to go through or to put some highlight on it, or in case there are, certain days you might not be able to join, or you have some urgent issues, urgent work. So I would strongly recommend to use this discussion board and post, so that, just your availability in case you're not available, so that I get notification and even the support team gets notification, so that all of us can plan things accordingly.
Sure.
Does that make sense?
Yep. Absolutely.
Yeah. Guys, sorry, your voice is not really audible, so I'm not sure whether it's my issue. Let me.
Is it better now?
Oh,
Abhi?
yeah, it's better now. Yeah, it's good now. Okay. So yeah, and then lastly, we'll just put it a kind of a attendance over here, which is again, I will have to see whether you guys can have access or it is just me who can edit this sheet. So we'll just put the attendance over here, and we'll go about it. So this is a go-to tool which you will have access all the time, and you can, just go through the links and all of that information available on this tenant. Now, if you just look at, how this content is listed over here, so they have been divided into modules. As you can see, they need to arrange it in proper order, as in like, module 1 and then you see module 10, but definitely all the modules are listed over here. And then you have the PPT on the high level, which you would want to see based on our discussion, or maybe like, if you have more queries, you can get back to me, something. And additionally, I will be like, in the session, I will be going through some document also. So obviously, since you will have all these recorded sessions, it will be helpful for you to actually go through it, all of that information. And at any point in time, like, you already have the support contact number. And I believe in both of your case, is it Chris
Yeah,
who
Chris. Yeah.
Chris, right? Okay, yeah, yeah. So because Zarantech has a lot of associates who work directly with trainee. So I would suggest that like, instead of I mean, you can reach out to Chris in case like, you want to give some update, or provide your like, whether your availability. But I would strongly suggest that sometime what happens, and this is based on our prior experience, that let's say you have updated Chris, but Chris might not have reached out to me. Either he just missed it, or he like, due to his multiple commitments. So in that case, the best part would be to put it in the discussion board, and it will directly notify me. So I will have all the latest update in my mailbox, and that
Okay.
will,
Got it.
yeah, that will help me understand the entire things, like how we would proceed. So okay, yeah. So now coming back to the same stuff, like, the content part. So as I mentioned, like, we have these PPTs, like, and how you can actually look at over here is like, the ones which are in red color, like, if you see the logo, the legend logo, the one which are in the red color square boxes are actually the presentation, which should be more of like, our focus area, like, to go through them, and just like, they will give more high level information. But definitely when I would be giving you, or like, showing you things, it will be on more detailed way, manner. But these are like more of your reference purpose to understand what was being taught during the session. So these are like high. And then these are like, a kind of a Q&A, which you can just go through, and like, few assignment, which probably during your free time you can actually go through. And obviously we can discuss things like, as and when things fall back, or like, you need some support or help around it. So
Okay.
yeah.
A big quick question actually. Coming to the assignments, and also once we get started with the assignments, can we get access to the tenant as well?
Oh yeah, yeah. So definitely, yeah, that's a good point. So I was about to say on that part. So I would be providing you a Workday tenant. So there are two approaches basically. So
Okay.
like, to this. One is like, when we say a tenant, which is a real application, a Workday application. So the two ways we can provide you access. The always what we do is, I don't know if you have heard of Workday Community. Now, community is again like a Stack Overflow kind of a intranet Workday's website, which actually has a built-in tenant, which we leverage for all our training, which has equal capabilities. So we would be providing you that tenant. You will be able to get access to it, and you can start doing some kind of like, fun stuff, play around things, like whatever you go through the session. And then obviously, like, if you have any question, you will get back to us. So that's one thing, a community access. In case the community access is something which like, is not fulfilling our complete requirement, then we will provide you a GMS or an implementation tenant. But uh, getting a GMS or an implementation tenant is sometimes risky, because a lot of people would be editing, like, things. You might find like, that your reports are not there, or some or the other thing. So we'll make sure that you have those things, Ashwat, if that answers your question.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of,
Thanks.
yeah. Sure.
Oh, sorry, Karuna. I probably I'll just get a bit used to it once I start hearing you guys more on this.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So, any questions at this point in time, like, on a logistics side, which you would want to know, like, obviously this is your first engagement with Zarentech, with me, uh, and we'll try to be more in line between three of us. So the good part is that it's a two is to one training, like you both are there, and obviously you guys know each other, and it's me. So we will have a more personal connect instead of like a batch training concept where, like, that you would just have to go with the flow and have to make sure that all of the participants are in line. But certainly we can be flexible on things, obviously, because as I mentioned, just two of you. We'll just sail through and, like, learn all the things. And obviously if there are some add-on specific requirement of yours, like I do remember you were mentioning about the API part, like, something on the reporting, how do we expose that data, something like, overall understanding of the integration structure. So those queries we can certainly take it up, like, if you want some extra knowledge or extra information also, because from my experience standpoint, like, probably just to give you, like, I have close to around 12 years of experience onto the Workday platform. So I've seen that journey for a long time, and I know that there is always something which Workday brings in, over have always brought in into the ecosystem over this course of time, and a lot of things have revamped. So if you hear new stuff outside among your friends who are in the Workday system, we can certainly discuss, and that probably could be beneficial for you, like, at a later stage. And obviously, like, once you're equipped with this information, it will be more of your job to actually try and make your hands dirty in this ecosystem, so that that is where you actually get to know that, like, okay, you went through the concept, but how do we implement it, how do we use which things in which scenario. So those things will only come once you kind of, like, do more of a practice. And that's something very a basic ground rule, like, unless you test it out or try it out by yourself, the concept will not get solidified for you.
Got it.
Make sense? Okay. Okay, so one second. So let me so okay, so before we actually get started, Ashwath and Karuna, would you want to just give a quick snapshot about yourself? I know we had uh, uh, a quick discussion, but since now we are officially starting it off, so it would be good to know a bit about both of you, and then obviously on your like, experience, and what are the kind of takeaways you are expecting, which will kind of a set of, like, an understanding for me also, like, where we should head this journey forward.
Sure, Ravi. Ashwat, you want to start?
Sure. Yeah. So I am into the ERP space, Abhi.
Mhm.
I work on the Oracle ERP. Mm, So again, I have experience around 19 years into this ERP side. So what we are learning, what the main purpose of for us for this Workday is to learn Workday better and integrate with and use it as develop a connector and probably support the connectors that we have with other third-party systems from the ERP.
Okay, and Ashwath, like, if I understand you correctly, like, your main objective is to understand the tech stack of it, like, the technology, the technical aspect of it, because that is what you're going to leverage in your current job also.
That is correct, and also functional aspects as well because uh, so in our domain, what we work, we also would like to know the functional side because that we can come to that later. But
Mhm.
it would though I from if you see from my perspective, I'm into ERP already, and I know the functional processes. But when
Mhm.
it comes to different ERPs, they have their own. Though the process is same, that they might have their own terminology. So I would
Mhm.
like to know more of on the process side because we need to use our integration along with understanding the process better.
Right.
So simple example, right? Sales order. How do you create a sales order? And if
Mhm.
we plug in our connector into one of the sales order applications, so how should we be able to test it and those things and things like that.
Right, right. Got you, got you. I mean, I remember you had brought this topic during when we initially met also, and what I had suggested that Workday has a set of connectors and all of it, but it totally depends on the business requirement. Like what you will get to know is a connector part. Now, which one to use it in which scenario is something which your business would be making more proactive decision when you actually work on the real-time Workday solutions.
Yes, that's right. And the reason why we want to learn is because we want to build a connector from the Workday to external to connect to external systems. So that is also one of the reasons.
Yeah, yeah. Sure,
We have
sure.
different touch points within Workday applications, be it say if you want to enter a sales order, when you do an invoicing,
Mm-hmm.
or when you do a manual invoicing, when you do a purchase order creation. So
Mm-hmm.
we need to create connectors and have touch points in all these applications.
Yeah, basically it is, see, if you look at connectors overall thing, it is more of sending the data from the Workday ecosystem to the external system or an external
Exactly.
world,
That's
right?
correct.
So, so that is where their entire objective or their purpose comes in. Yeah, but
Yes.
that's good to know, Ashwath. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Sure.
All right. Avi, so I'm working on reporting side since past 16 years.
Mm-hmm.
Worked on multiple reporting tools like Cognos, Vivo, Business Objects, and Power BI, Tableau,
Mm-hmm.
OpenText, BART. So I had been working on all these tools since past 16 years. ERP is something like new to me,
Mm-hmm.
but down the line we'll be getting the Prism Analytics into our environment to do analytics on top of Workday.
Mm-hmm.
And also I'll be helping with the integration phase. So yeah, that is about me.
Yeah, I mean, Karuna, getting to know the integration is a great area because, as I said, it's all about data. It's a data-driven stuff. Like, it's a cloud platform, SaaS platform, but ultimately it's all driven by data. So
Right.
unless you know the how to move the data from Workday to the external system or to pull the data from external system back to Workday is something which these integrations or these reporting will help you in that part.
Right. Right.
Yeah, yeah. Sure, Karuna. Thank you so much. So it actually gives me a easiness that you guys have such a vast experience in your own field, which is closely related, I would say. Obviously, you have worked on various other platforms, SaaS products or ERP product, which in a architecture or in a skeleton view, our things are similar, but it's just that obviously when a new product comes into market, it gives you a new branding, a new terminology, set of a laundry list of terminology, a new set of way of working onto this platform. So to get you started and give you some background, how would our journey would look like. So there is a one sketch diagram, a rough diagram, which if you guys, you can see my screen, right?
Yes,
Yes.
Abhi. Yep.
Okay, so this is a kind of a high level skeleton of what I could visualize. This kind of a depiction, you would not find it anywhere, but for to make things most simpler, for any layman to understand, this is the entire tech stack of a workday. Now, as we move towards this journey, what this diagram is depicting, and always keep this diagram in your mind throughout the journey and even in future, because this is the foundation level. So what it says, you have a concept called custom report and core connector. So custom report, core connector, in Workday terminology, we call connectors are core connector. Now connectors can be of various type, worker, payroll, that will come later. So we have custom report and connectors on one side. Then we have a middle level middleware engine, and we have three different types of engine. Basically Workday Studio, which is again a different development platform. There is a document transformation, which is also a small engine. And then there is EIB, Enterprise Interface Enabler, right? So this is at the middle level, uh, at a middleware portion. And then you see a arrow moving outside as an output. So what does this diagram depicts is, it depicts two things. First, our journey, how we will going to cover all these topics during our training one by one. And second and more important thing is the data flow basically. So right now, if I have to explain you things like, and this will give you a complete picture of the entire tech stack in Workday. If you want to send the data from Workday to the external system, there are basically two most important, or I would say the basic building block, or two ways. One is you build a custom report. We will get to know what is a custom report and how do we do that. That's a second thing which we will go. But you build a custom report and you expose this data to the external system. Now if you see the output file is nothing but that you are sending it to the external system, external world. So custom report is one way. Like you can directly create a custom report and directly put it, send it to the external system. You can make use of connectors. You can create a connector. Now the best part of Workday is that you don't have to build these connector from scratch. There are lots of templates which you can use, and you have to configure them. You have to just plug them. You have to configure few settings, attributes, and mapping and all of that you will do in a connector. And this connector can directly expose again to the third party system, right? So right now I'm not talking about this middleware layer, right? So just ignore it. So directly a custom report can be used as an output. Directly connector, when you run this connector in Workday, the output can be directly sent as an output file to the third party system. Now if we introduce this middle layer, right, what is the function of this middle layer is, it is basically acting as a layer or an engine which helps you to transform your data. Now think of a scenario that your custom report generates an output in a certain format, right? Now before that, just to give you, XML is the talking language of Workday. So any communication which Workday performs within the system as well as the external system is the XML. Right now the data which it sends in the form of XML. But so when you generate a custom report, it gives you an XML data, which is a by default format. Now your external system, or the system which you want to connect or send the data, expects your data into a certain format, right? So in that case, this middle layer comes into the picture. So you have a custom report data, and then you want to transform that data in a certain format. In those cases, you would be using either EIB or a document transformation or a Workday Studio. Same goes for a connector. Connector's default output format of the data is XML. But again, if your requirement wants you to transform the data and send it to in a different format, then again you would be leveraging any of these engines which is inbuilt. So I'm not sure if you have heard of Workday Studio. Workday Studio is a totally different platform for development purpose, and obviously we will go through the high level, how what that it's a IDE, integration development environment. And we will see how it works, and it's a totally a different system where you can build your integrations. Now document transformation, again it's a template within the Workday, so you will be able to leverage it and build your and transform your data. And then the same goes for EIB, so enterprise interface enabler. Now you would ask a question like, why do we have so many ways of doing it? So it again depends on the complexity of your what kind of transformation you want, how the output data should look like, basically which is going out from Workday, and so many different factors like scenarios which falls into this bucket. Now right now we are just only talking about how the data flow looks like, right? Like how you build a custom report and use any of these engine to transform your data and then send it to output system. And hence this, when you stitch these pieces, right? All together. That is what you call in Workday's terminology as an integration. So a simple example, or in a simple terminology, so you have, there could be variety of combinations. So if you see down, I have just listed a high level of stuff: integration, tech stack combination. So you could have a combination of a custom report with a Workday Studio to send the data outside, and it will become a complete integration. You can have a core connector with a Workday Studio, and again it will become an integration. You can have a core connector with document transformation, which again will be a integration. So this is how you stitch different pieces in Workday, combine them, create a business process, provide the steps, mention the delivery mechanism, and obviously, once you have a combination, so let us assume that you have a combination of a custom report with an EIB. So obviously, you run the custom report and generate the output. EIB will do the transformation part. As I mentioned, it's a transformation engine, right? But obviously, you need to know that, hey, I need to deliver my file to this external system. Where can I supply the transport details, like whether you are using a SFTP protocol, or whether you are using a FTP, or you want to send the data in to a different exchange server, or let's say Amazon S2 bucket, any kind of thing. So those configuration or those delivery mechanism, you would be able to set it up within your transformation mechanism engine, and that helps you to basically sends your output file to the external world. So the reason why I showed you this image, and I just thought, it makes more sense to create a very layman architecture over here, because it gives us a more clarity, like how how we would move in this journey, what all things we would touch base and see, and the different pieces. And obviously then when you actually start working on real time business scenarios in your organization, or in your next play, or any next tenure, you would know these pieces, and then based on your business problem, you would be able to stitch the right combination and provide a integration solution to your customer, or when you're working dealing with these integration development. So any questions on this, Ashwat and Karuna? Because this is something which will help, this diagram should be there in your mind, so which will help you to guide through how the journey would look like.
So all the deployment happens in the Workday Studio, right? If you build a connector to expose it in Workday or things like that.
So if you have a Workday, if you have an integration which is based on using a Workday Studio platform, right? So you will be able to deploy this studio based integration from the development environment, and certainly it gets deployed in the Workday. Workday will actually provide a memory allocation to run that integration at a certain based on the processing engine capability and the availability of the memory resource.
Got it.
But to answer to your question in a more generic manner, you mentioned about Studio, but to answer your question in a more generic manner, whether it's a EIB or a document transformation, or in a matter of fact, if you're just running a core connector alone, and core connector itself is a very powerful tool. If you're running this itself alone, it will just run within the allocated memory within the Workday's ecosystem. So you need not to deploy it separately. This is a template. So that is what I was telling, that that's a beauty of Workday, that Workday provides these connector templates. You just have to plug in, configure few of the things, and your connectors and up and running all the time whenever you want to run them.
Okay. Cool.
Abhi, one quick question actually.
Sure.
So does Workday charge per data, like the amount of data that is moved in, like
No, no, no.
Amazon servers?
No, they don't do in that manner. So
Okay,
obviously, like, once, so assume tomorrow your organization thinks, hey, let's move to a different SaaS platform like Workday into your company's ecosystem, right? So they charge based on the tenant, the number of headcount you have, it basically the utilization headcount resources, and obviously the server capability, like, they give you a meaningful capacity based on your organization level and the kind of modules you have implemented in your organization,
got it.
right? Yeah. So always remember, like, if this diagram is mostly suitable for folks like you and me who wants to learn, like, get onto a path where you want to know this the entire tech stack of it, and, like, understand that how the actual picture works, because you will not have this kind of a scenario or a diagram which gives you a kind of one simple clear picture on it. One thing which probably you might have thought, or, like, you certainly would start thinking is, like, hey, this diagram only depicts how the data is going from Workday to the outside world. How about anything which I want to send from outside world back to the Workday? So in those cases, you do not have to use custom report, connectors, EIB, document transformation. In 99% of the scenarios, you will be using a Workday Studio. That is a platform, again, which helps you to build your custom integrations. Basically, you have to do all the codings. The coding is in the form of MVEL, MVEL. So MVEL expressions is something, like, you will write it down, uh, uh, and, like, that will help you to build your integration. And obviously there are set of SOAP APIs and, like, REST APIs which Workday has delivered. So let me just quickly show you. It's an open source link. Let me see if I can put it up in the chat. That will be really helpful. Yeah, actually, I don't have. Okay, so what I don't see, I can send it to you guys, but let me do that certainly. So what you see right now on my screen, Karuna and Ashwath, is an open source link. Okay, before that, just wanted to, have you guys heard of this Workday community before?
Yes, Abhi,
No,
I did.
not me.
Okay, so just to give you an background, like, what is community? So as I mentioned, community is nothing but like a Stack Overflow or a Google of Workday in a very simple manner. Any person who wants to use or want to look up for a like, let me directly show you. That will give you a better picture. So this is a community URL, and I think I don't have credential right now, but I'll certainly share it with you. So these are community, and here only you will have access to the community. And it's a community is basically nothing but where you can have like, discussion boards where you can find your questions, you can put up your queries. It's a Stack Overflow thing, basically, like, where you get solution to your problems, what you're facing in your real time. Okay, so this URL I would be sending with you, and the credential, and I will show you how you can navigate to your like, Workday tenant within this. So your Workday tenant is also available in this community. So that will help you, and I think I should be having it. Let me just check. I'm just taking a impersonating a user, so that will help me. Okay, yeah, this one is still working. Okay, so let me just go to, okay. So when anyone logs in to Workday community, so this is, let me go to the home page. Okay, so this is how a Workday community looks like for your reference. So when you log in over here, this will be your community, and this is how like, you will have various areas over here. Now we will go to Workday tenants. I'll search for Workday tenant, or else I will be providing you a direct access instead of going through these hassle. Okay, looks like they are modifying it right now, but yeah. So okay, so I will give you a direct access, and hence you will be able to. So this community, Workday community, is something which is 24/7, always in a update state. Like, Workday would be modifying some other stuff over here to make a user experience better, and there are a lot of areas where you can actually have uh, learning path, just to get to know some high level topics, what needs to be covered, see enterprise interface builder, web service. And that is where I was showing you this open source link. Now this open source link is basically what, it's a laundry list of all the Workday web service. Remember, these are soap based service. So I'm sure you guys must have heard or worked on the SOAP web services in your past. So this is a laundry list of all the SOAP web services provided by the Workday, which are readily available to the external world and can be used any point in time. So what this list gives you is like, so let's say these are the categories basically. So if you look at absence management, right? So if I click on this, here are the actual web services. See, adjust time off, enter time off. So whatever operations you do in the workday, right? Ultimately in the background, these web services are being called. And hence what Workday has done is the Workday has exposed these web services to the outer world to use them and call from there into their system. Now if I click on this, and just this is, I'm just showing you high level because this is something it's good to know, and you can keep this link handy to understand things more better. So let's say enter time off, right? So when I click on that, there are four contents which is available: the request, the response, right, elements, and web service. So obviously request means what parameter you need to supply while putting up, when sending the request. So you have all these parameter and the XML. So as I mentioned that it's the talking language of Workday in terms of sending a request and receiving the response is always the XML. So you have the XML template which will generate basically. So this link is basically an open source link which Workday has provided to the outer world, wherein you can make leverage of all these SOAP APIs and use it into your system to call these web services, and either to load the data back into the workday, or maybe if you need the data and pull the data, you can make use of this SOAP APIs. Any questions, Karuna, Ashwin?
Yeah, so these are standard out-of-the-box APIs, and if you want to build APIs, then we use the Workday Studio. Is it?
Exactly. So in that case, so these are the standard ones which Workday has exposed. But certainly, if you want to create your own API, or build your own API through reports and all, you can surely use the Workday tenant to build your own specific ones.
Oh. And do we do that in the Workday Studio to build APIs?
No. So what happens is okay. So obviously, when we go into deep dive, we'll understand better. But a one-liner answer would be: so you saw that diagram, right? This custom report. So
Yeah.
when you create a custom report, basically in Workday, like if you are a Workday developer, you will call it as a custom report. But you create a custom report and then expose this report as an API to the outer world. So for outer world, it is not a custom report. It is actually an API.
Got it. Got it.
And we do some kind of a configuration setup to make sure that this custom report is now called as an API to the external system. So for a developer, a Workday developer like you and me, we will still know that it's a report internally. But for the external system or external world, this will be an API.
Got
Yeah. Any
Cool.
questions, Karuna?
No, Abhi. Everything looks good.
Okay. So the next set of link, which I also wanted to show you, and all these links are good to have it because as you are onboarded on this journey, these are like latest update, which eventually it's something which I am also learning and good to have it. And like, you know, it's something which Workday is providing. So as we saw this link, this list, which we saw is a SOAP API list. Like, you know, you have the entire inventory of all the categories. So basically this is a category. And when you click on, like, let's say if I'm clicking on staffing, and so what does staffing says? Staffing web service operation exposes Workday HCM services and data. These services related to staffing information or transaction, both employee and contractors, right? So when we click on staffing, then you will get to know all these, like, you know, change job, assign the roles, assign organization, all of these operation, which like create position, close position. So what these operations are being done on the Workday UI when you log in into the UI, right? What the operation which you do in this UI, basically internally, what happen is these web services are being called in the background, and that is what the Workday engine does it. So they call these web services in the background, and hence those operations on the UI are able to perform, which you and I, we won't feel it basically, right? So that is one thing, which is a laundry list of all these articles, like, you know, all these services, the soap APIs basically. This new link, which I am right now on my screen, is basically a REST API. So this one is a SOAP API. And over here, we have the set of REST API. This is comparatively a newer technology, which Workday is exposing to its outside world. It is still in work in progress and not like, you know, a complete 100% develop. And here you have all the REST APIs exposed by the Workday. So in one of the session, we will try to use a Postman basically to to hit few web services, these REST API, and see how the like, you know, output basically looks like, you know, because that will give us a better idea, like, hey, I know this list, but I don't know how to use it. So how can I just, like, you know, do some hit and trial or some fun stuff to see the basically the data, like, you know, how it looks like. So that's one thing. So over here, it's a complete laundry list of based on the categories. Again, like, you know, here you have the categories like absence management V1. So V1, so they are still improvising it, a Workday on a regular basis. And any kind of changes you can certainly see over here under view change history, which will give you all the changes which are happening within the Workday ecosystem, like, you know, by the Workday folks. Okay. Now let's get into a tenant. And this is again a dummy tenant, which I am right now using for just our purpose. So Ashwath and Karuna, have you had a chance to anytime look at Workday tenant anytime in past, or any of your friends who are working in an organization where Workday is being leveraged as a SaaS product?
I had a small what do you call trial talent within our organization.
Mhm.
I did some build like some custom calculations and reports, probably a couple of them. That's it.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah,
Good to know.
not-
Good to
Me
know that.
nothing.
But you
I
have
haven't.
seen it, so that's good to. How about you, Ashwar?
No, I haven't had a chance to look at the Workday
Okay, cool.
interface.
That makes sense. So yeah. So if you see, even for Karuna, this UI will look a totally different from what he must have seen in past, because what Workday does is, Workday does an update to not only to its UI, but also to a lot of adding new features, functionalities 2 times in a year. So very recently, so one time it happens around March time frame, which was done last month, and again it will happen around September to October time frame, where lots of new features would come in into the tenant and would be available globally by to all the client. But certainly it is up to client whether they want to enable those features or not. So they don't put many of those features mandatory, but certain things are optional. The UI related things are optional, while the functionality, if they want to hardly push those into the production, so they will push it basically. So this is a different look and feel of a UI, and obviously since you will have access to a tenant, which again might look a bit different, but overall high level things would look similar. So at the top you have a search bar, which is a strong feature where you will be searching your task, your report, or any of those feature over here. Then on the top hand side you will be able to navigate to your respective profile. Basically, whichever account you will use, you will have that information. uh, you can uh, go here. So think from an employee standpoint, you are a part of an organization, and so you will have this information like summary on the left hand side, then related to your job, what kind of job you are doing, and then you have different tabs over here, right? Like which gives you the organization structure you're part of, your employment, personal employment data, job. So these are more of a employees work tenure related information which you will be able to find it. You have contact information, you have personal data listed over here, so and so forth, right? So this is basically just like to get you a feel of like how this system look like, and how you can navigate it from one place to another. Obviously, if you want to see the team hierarchy, you have a team logo over here. And since this is also a dummy tenant, one of the tenant, and hence you can see the data, the kind of a structure, what it is listed over here. And as we move up, we will see the hierarchy, how the supervisory organization, how it looks like within this particular tenant. And at the top level, obviously, there will be an organization who will have a CEO. So hence you see all these dummy data, how this tenant has been set it up at a foundation level. So on this left hand side, so okay, so there are a lot of applications within the Workday, which earlier, before this new UI got into this thing, uh, all the application were listed over here itself. Now what Workday has done is they have collapsed all of it over here. So if you click on view all apps, you will be able to see similar kind of data over here also. These are kind of a tiles or modules. So if you, let's say, if you want to if I go to absence, so you will be able to see a few stuff might not be enabled over here, but let's see. So let's say if we go to the expense, right? So in an organization, obviously you will have to raise some reimbursement request, you have to, so you will go to create expense report, and then obviously provide your details, and create your expense. So this is like how you create expense. If you want to know list of all the expense reports which you have created. So you have to, like, let's say you're picking a few options and between a date range. So these are like filters which Workday provides by default, and a lot of these functionality Workday will provide it. And if you see, we didn't got any data, like zero item. Basically, the condition which we had provided might not have any data, but any data which will get displayed will be in the form of a tabular format. So as you can see, it's a table structure which has a column, like, the heading, and then obviously if you have the data, you will have all of them in a complete format. So this is on to the navigation part. Then there are a couple of things which you would see over here, not exactly useful for you, but it's again good to know that, like, when you are using this tenant, and obviously you need to know. So there are a couple of, there's one bell icon on the top right side, and then there is a kind of an inbox item. So notification, so this bell icon basically gives you any kind of notification which is happening in a tenant at a business process level. Let's say there is some change job or some employee movement happening between one organization to another, someone going on a international assignment, there is a transfer happening or something like that. So those kind of notification, if you are an admin or if you are a kind of a super user, you will start receiving those kind of notification under bell icon. Like, it's a list of all the notification. The inbox is primarily, it's not an Outlook inbox, something like, which, that, like, it's Workday's inbox. So here also, like, certain things would come in, like, if there is some kind of a changes happening within the system, those will start reflecting over here. And if there is something which needs your attention, like, if there is some steps which requires your approval, because this is more of a for a person who is actually, let's say, into an HR domain, right? So like, let's say, or a manager, like if an employee applies a leave, it should go to their manager for approval, right? So that manager request, the employee request for manager approval will start flowing in over here, and then the manager has to take the appropriate action onto that, so that the workflow can be completed. So basically, these two sets of information is just good to know, like how, what kind of notification would come in as part of this inbox. Okay. Any question, Ashwath, Karuna?
Oh, cool. Similar. We have a similar setup in Oracle ERP as well. So they have inboxes where all your workflow messages would flow into your inbox, and you can approve from the messages itself.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, that's good to know. Like, and which system is it which you are using in your current organization?
Oracle ERP, JD Edwards.
Okay, got it. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Even a lot of similarities you would find in, like, just in case once, because obviously you are doing reporting over there, you're doing a similar kind of integration structure over there. So you would definitely find a lot of similarities in both systems.
Yeah.
So, okay. Any questions, Karuna, on your side?
No, Abhi. Good.
Okay, okay. So let's take a 5 to 8 minutes bio break, guys, and we'll be just back.
Sure, Abhi.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, so let's start looking at few stuff. I think Ashwath is also back. Okay, so very first thing, so again, going back to the same diagram, like, our first topic or first agenda would be to understand custom report. What are they? How do we build? And anything, everything around it, basically, like, because uh, I see we have some information, but obviously not the insight of it. Like, what is, with what notion we would use custom report, in which scenario we would use custom report, why would we use, and before that, what all things Workday can provide us, like, before we actually think of using a custom report. So from a reporting standpoint, basically, Workday provides you two sets of reports, like, One is obviously, so as the name says custom report, it is nothing but developed by users or a developer like you and me in the Workday tenant. So we build custom reports, we build reports, and hence they are called as custom report. But before that, there are reports which are Workday delivered. So if we have to look at those Workday delivered or Workday provided, we have to look at Workday standard report. And when you run it, so basically Workday itself has its own list of laundry list of standard reports provided by them, and it will ask you for a category, a particular category. So if we are not sure of category, right, so we can directly look at this list and it will give you all the list of reports delivered by the Workday. Basically these are the categories which we can use it. So let's take an example and pick up a category over here and see how the data looks like basically. So this is, I have just picked up a category over here as expense. Now if you see, there are 53 items coming in, right? So 53 item means these are basically the report names. So these are the actual report names which are coming up, which are delivered by the Workday, their corresponding description, type, whether they can be scheduled, and what domains. And I'll get to the schedulable domain at a later stage. One important thing to notice over here is there is a type called report writer. And if you scroll down, either you will find a type as report writer or as espresso. Now, one important thing to notice over here is that anything which has been mentioned as a espresso, you cannot copy that report. So what we are trying to see over here is, before we actually think of building our own custom report, right, we actually should look up these standard reports provided by the Workday. If our functionality or if our requirement is not fulfilled, then we should jump over to build our own custom report. So how do we use this? So let's I will just pick up a report, and it's a most popular report, expenses without receipt. Now, what does this report says is, as the name suggests, that it will pull up all the expense report which does not have a receipt attached to it, right? Now you would say this is just a description. How do we run it, or how do we see the description? And see over here, it is a report writer, type is report writer. So there are 3 dots which are called as action item. So always remember everything. See, do you see at the top 3 dot? This is called as action. Over here, action. So I click on that and I got few options over here. So since it's a standard report, I can directly run it. So let me just run it. And while running it, it asks me for few launch parameter. So since it's a dummy tenant, so let me just try with a bigger set of data, GMS, which is a company with which this dummy data has been set it up, called as Global Modern Services. And this company has a presence in many countries. So I'm just vaguely giving a lot of information so that we would be able to get some data, because obviously if I give a particular location, we might not have data and we end up doing a back and forth. Let me just give a random from, and then till today maybe, and currency, let's okay, let's put up USD and see if something we gets up. And the moment I click OK, this report will start running it in the background. Okay, we got some data. Okay, so now here is the thing, which is the very first thing to understand is, we ran this report called Workday, expense without receipt. It's a standard report. We gave the launch parameter. So all the launch parameter are listed over here, whatever launch parameter we gave it. The output will always look like in a tabular format. But remember, Workday's language is XML, talking language. Hence, in the background, this data is in the form of XML, but for a UI representation, you are seeing this data in the form of a tabular format, which is a default format. You can certainly have flexibility to change this format. That's one thing. Now looking at a output, and it's an output which is standard output. You have all the operations listed over here. All these the output is divided into rows and columns, and each column is again filterable. So let's say pay to, right? There is a column, and then we have a value called Kumar Chopra. So if I just go over here and type in over here, and yeah, so I do get it. So all these columns are filterable. So it will give me only, it has given me 12 records, out of which says value of pay to is equal to Kumar Chopra. So think of this as a SQL query. Remember, like I was mentioning, if you guys have had an experience on working on any of the database side, right? Whether it's an Oracle database or a MS SQL database. So you would write up a query and put up a where clause or a where condition. Similar way, you are putting up a condition over here on the runtime. You can filter it with certain condition, and not only is, but there are certain different kinds of filter depending on the data type which that particular column returns, right? So obviously this column is a date parameter, hence it is giving by default, like, if you want to search, filter it between two date range, you can certainly do so, on, after, or before, or maybe, like, if there is an empty value also. So we don't have anything empty, so it is not giving any result. So we have total 11,245 results which came in when we gave actually this launch set of launch parameter, right? So that's a very first thing, and obviously it is giving us all these lists. So remember these column, right? These are the column which has been derived using it. And remember, in the launch parameter, I gave the reporting currency as USD. Hence you will see all the values as USD over here only. uh, Obviously, if any column which you want to filter it, it's filterable. So that is one thing. When you actually play around with the standard report, you will be able to see how the data looks like. Now if you see on the top right side over here, there are few icons, right? So these icons helps you to again make your output data look like in a more user friendly or more interactive or something, if you want, in a certain more drilling down or more filterable way, right? So you have an option where you can put it up the data into a different format. So I have clicked one, and let it get just loaded. You can put your data in a pie chart, in any sorts of UI different representation, and this will automatically be taken care by the Workday itself. I think it is because of this huge data. Let's see. Okay, yeah. So here, if you see, we have our data, the same representation of data in this particular format. Now you can choose variety of options over here, like, from this option, like what kind of UI representation you want to make sure, like whether you want to look at clustered column, which is right now the format right now which you see, whether you want to pick it up a line format or a bubble format, right? So all that information is listed over here. Like, you can certainly look at your data, the same data, in a more different manner, and obviously your default format would be listed down over here, right? So this is a different view of the same data. Next thing, if you want to add more filter, you can certainly add the filter condition on a particular column. So, like, here they're asking for a column, right? So depending on the column, like let's say pay to, right? So it's directly, again, we can give as we gave Mr. Chopra, and then this pay to column will again get automatically filtered your output with just the values related to Mr. Kumar Chopra, right? And certainly you can remove the filter by just clicking on over here and remove the filter. So this is something like, how you can actually play around with your data once you run a standard report. Now, if you see over here, again, very important thing, this is a standard report. As we are seeing, there are three dots which are action item. If you go over here, you get an option, copy, run and schedule. So run is nothing but you are running a report. So this is nothing but when you provide launch parameter, you actually run this report. That's what you call it in terms of Workday, that you are running a report and generating the output. So now if you have to create a copy, right? So remember, like expense without report, this type of report was a report writer. These type of reports can be copied, and I will show you that the other one cannot be. So you can copy a report, and let's say this is underscore Karuna, and this is, I'm just giving it for yes. I'll click OK, and the moment I
What
do,
what is optimized for performance
yeah, so that
option?
yeah, so that option is there, like when you want to have more refined tuning on the performance side, when you
Okay.
want your data to run it in more optimized manner. That is what that option is all about. But when you build a custom report on a scratch, you will get to know, you will understand it better, that option is.
Okay. Does it run behind the scenes or
This is
just
all
check?
behind the, no, this is all behind the scene. You, that is what the beauty, as I say, that you have to do very limited configuration and it will give you a complete like, the results work will be totally awestruck results which you will get it.
Okay. Got it.
So as we created a report, like, so what I did was I copied a report. Basically I copied a standard report, renamed it, and now this report is there, and I can just click OK. Now that standard report is now took a copy and it has become a custom report. So I can just click done. Right. So now this was the standard report, expense without receipt. I took a copy of it and now it has become a custom report. So that is why you would ask, like, why would we want to copy a report? Because it's a Workday standard report. You cannot modify the columns and all of it. Hence you take a copy of that report and you can modify that report, which we'll see later, like, how do we modify it? How do we actually play around with the report? So let me go back again to the Workday standard report and to show you, like, where is your report gone. So in this search bar only, if you just type in, see that report itself is coming up. If you know the report name, now it is asking for the launch parameter. So there are multiple ways where you can actually see your report. There is a task called view custom report. We will definitely see this task later, but just to quickly show you, custom report, you give the name of your report, hit enter, and you will be able to see the definition of that report. One second. So you will be able to see the definition of this report. Hence you are able to see it right now over here. Right. So let's go back to standard report. And again, type in expense. And over here, let's look a different set of report. Let's see if it is an express of report, right? So let me check if I have the access to run this report. So these reports permission also varies, and hence some of the Espresso report we might not have access to run them. We can schedule them. Okay, looks like I don't have access to run this report Espresso, but in general, Espresso reports are the ones which you cannot copy it. Basically, you cannot make a copy of it. Only the report writers are the one which you can run them and take a copy of it. So that's one thing. Now, we saw this task called Workday Standard Report, right? Now there is a task called All Custom Report. And I will not be providing any parameter over here. It's basically a task, and let me click OK. Now, what it gives me a list is that all the reports, and mind it, it's a custom report, means developed by a developer like you and me who have developed reports in this tenant. So there are 2,673 reports. And this list does not comprise of the standard report, because standard reports are the one which are provided by the Workday still. Now you would say that your particular report which we had created, now it has become a custom report. From a standard report, it has become a custom report. So if we look for, or just type in with Karuna, our list, our report is coming. And if I just try to filter it out, so this, so what it is, so it's a all custom report is basically a report which gives a list of all the reports in this tenant. So see, this is the report name and it's a hyperlink. You can directly open the link of this in a different tab. You see the type of report advanced, and we'll see what all different types of reports are there. The data source which it uses, category. Remember, we use the expenses as the category. Who created this report? So since it got created on my account, it is reflecting my name over here. Created on, and the details. What was the default format type of the format? So it's a tabular format. And we had given that it's a temporary report. So any report which we create, you can opt an option of temporary versus non-temporary. So temporary reports normally stays for a week or so, and after they get wiped out by the Workday itself, the memory, right? So when I click on this particular and open it in a different tab, I will get to see the definition of that report. So, and see at the top, it's clearly mentioned that this report will get deleted in a week time frame by the Workday itself, because it's a temporary report. Okay. And now we will when we meet in the next session, obviously we will drill down what exactly these parameter means from a report standpoint. This is basically a definition page of this particular report. If you want to directly search for the report, you can just paste it. And what will happen is, like, the moment you click on it, it will be in the run mode. So this screen is a run mode, where you provide the launch parameter and click OK, and it will start running it. It will start running in the background, and it will generate the output in the tabular format. So that is one way. Or the other way is, in fact, two ways. Either you can go to all custom report task, which is again a report, or more simpler is view custom report. But in this case, you would have to know the report of, you have to know the name of the report. So sometimes we will be creating so many reports and we might forget the name, right? So if I remember, hey, I just know that I had created a report which had a keyword called Karuna. So I will just search it with that and it will give me. And the moment I click OK, it will go to the definition page of it. So from here, you are on the definition page. Now you would ask, some basic thing, like, as I mentioned, every report or anything in Workday has an action item. So as seen, we have an action item, and from the standard report, it has become now a custom report. So see, we are on the custom report. So if I click on the option, and we see all these options listed over here. And if we look at this first one, here we have multiple options that what operation you would want to do. Like, you want to edit this report, you want to again take a copy of it. Like, sometime you want to make multiple copies of the same report, or you want to run it, directly run it, or you want to test it. So so these are various options, and hence you can delete also, like, from here only. If you want to delete it right away, you can delete this report right away from there. 1 second. Sorry for that. Yeah. So you can directly just edit, copy, and all these options, you can just take it from here and run it. One important thing over here is you see two options, and these are like very basic thing which I wanted to let you know today, so that if once you get an access and you start playing around, few basic stuff which you can do. Run versus test. So when you run this, what is the difference between these two options? When you click on run, it basically runs it for the entire population based on the criteria which you have given in the tenant. So this report runs for the entire population, whoever fulfills the criteria, while the test will give you a random set of output. So if I click on yes, and let me just put it parameter, and then there is one more interesting thing which I wanted to show you, which will make our life easier now, because we need not to so okay, let me put it USD. So sometimes these reports, right, they will have a lot of launch parameter which we might feel irritated to add again and again, all of this. So what we can do is we can store these launch parameters. How we can do is we have an option called filter. So if I just give, let's say this report belongs to Karuna. So let me put Karuna filter as just a name, and I'll save it. Right. So what it does is there is a filter saved with Karuna name, and let me, if I remove it, all of it, right, all this information, or let me cancel it. 1 second. Okay, let me go to this report this time. So you see, now we have one saved filter called Karuna filter, right? Then we name. And now if I have to go over here, test. Now in this case, I need not to add my filters. What I'll do is I'll just select the filter, and it all got auto populated over here, and I can directly run my output. Right. So it just gave me the output in the same manner. If I have to go to the definition of the report, I can certainly, it's a hyperlink. So I can go and click over that report, and it will take me directly to the definition of the report. Now to go into the edit mode, we have an edit option. You go to the edit mode, and that is where we will learn about these things, like, what are these different tabs? What does this table looks like? Basically, when we are in a definition mode, right, this is a view we get. We have something called business object, we have something called fields, column override, heading, format, option, and all of it. And then obviously under definition, we see variety of tabs listed over here. So what does each of them mean, and how does they impact the output? Because when we run this report, or when we do let's run it and choose the filter, there is a different representation of the output. So how do we correlate this output versus the definition? If I just open it in the different tab, so I have opened this. Definition is on one tab, this one, and the output is on over here. So how do we correlate? So that we'll see in tomorrow's session and obviously understand what all these components look like, what are these feature, and obviously very important part is the action item. What are these sections which helps us to create our report, edit, ownership. There are a lot of features which we can play around with this report and see how we can modify these reports for our own customized requirement. And obviously understand few other standard reports like so today we saw all custom report as one thing, which is a very important and very first level thing. We saw view custom report, which helps us to know a definition of a particular report. We saw Workday standard report, which will be based on a category which we pick it up. If we are not sure of category, certainly we can look up relatable item which we want to check, and then obviously look up that data, and hence we will look at certain more field which will give us more idea on what all various categories of reports looks like. So any questions, Ashwath and Karuna, before we wind up to today's session? I don't want to overburden in the first class because there will be a lot of things to grasp, and we'll start going through the documentation also.
I'm good, Abhi.
How about you, Ashwa?
Yeah, I'm good. Yeah, this is perfect to start with.
Okay, great then, guys. So as I said, we'll use this LMS as our base reference for all the communication and the discussion board, and I'll get sorted with your tenant access. I will be posting up the URL, the login credential in the discussion board, so you can look up to it, and keep your notification enabled so that whatever is posted here, you have your notification, and you'll get the update. Does that sound good?
Sure, Abhi. Yep.
Perfect. Yeah.
Sounds good.
Perfect then. Okay, then see you guys tomorrow and have a good night.
Thank you for attending the session. I hope you all enjoyed it. Don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel. Also, feel free to ask your questions in the comment section below, and we will reply to them at the earliest.